You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what's good, everybody? Brought to you by Betano. It's time for the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. It's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill ahead of the first of two Global Series games for the Maple Leafs. How are you feeling today, Rosie? How are you, buddy?
Pretty average, man, but that's okay. I'm battling. I had a battle night, and now I'm going for dental surgery, so it's just been a week.
You're in one, dude. And speaking of in one, so I didn't bring this up on the podcast, but I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. What a time. What an adventure to get here. But it always reminds me every time I hit the airport and you look around and you see people, how they deal with their day-to-day and being in an airport. Has nobody ever flown before? Like, that's my question. You ever get those people, no clue what's going on? Oh, I got to take my belt off. Oh, I can't bring liquids. Like, it's insane to me, man.
My one beef is like, why is it always different? Your shoes are okay this flight. Next week, shoes got to come off. This, that, the other thing. But yeah, some people don't fly all the time, man. They don't know what to do. What if some guy hasn't flown in like 4 years? A lot has changed. I mean, not everyone's a spoiled little brat jet setter like you tend to be.
Okay. Well, I work hard for my money first and foremost, but maybe I'm ignorant because, I was even laughing. They had this lady take off her shoes because everybody in the airport through security have to take off your shoes. She said, well, I'm 75, but last time I checked, that's not an excuse. I don't know. People in the chat, you can relate. Anybody who travels, maybe even if it's once a year, you always run into those people. You're like, have you ever traveled before? And that's my
new. Yeah, some people cruise around lost. One thing I do that makes me look like a newbie, I always got to walk all the way down to my gate just to check that it exists, and then walk back to the restaurant or whatever I'm going to set up shop for. So I'm kind
That's
of
not a lie, buddy. That's a spot check. You're heading down to the gate to see what's cooking on that flight. Who's on that flight? Let's be real here, okay?
Yeah, with me and the family and the two little ones, I'm really just checking things out. People watching is at a primo in the airport, though. I do like that.
Buddy, still got a pair of eyes. You can still do it. You're a married guy. You can still do it. Don't worry. You're still peeking around a bit. Come on.
I like the differences. Some people go old school. Like, it used to be an event to travel. Like, you dress up and it was a nice thing. Now people like dragging their fucking teddy bears through the thing with their jammies on, like a 30-year-old woman sucking her thumb. Like, I'm going to go to sleep as soon as I get on the plane. It's like, Jesus, people are different. I like it.
Dude, remember back in the day, people would wear like full-blown suits on flights. Now it's like track suits, right?
Yeah. Now it's jammies and slippers and dragging a blankie through the terminal, man. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, buddy, clean yourself up. You're in public.
I had to vent a bit. And naturally, obviously, I sat beside the biggest person on the plane yesterday. So I was cramped. I'm 6'3", you know this. And it was not a very enjoyable experience. I'm not a big turbulence guy. There was shitty weather in the area. It was pouring when we landed, but I made it here in one piece. So we're good to go here at the Leafs Nation 401, where you can subscribe here on YouTube at the Leafs Nation 401. Once again, where you can subscribe if you're watching right now and are not subscribed. Please help us out. Search Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast as well. And speaking of convenience and great times, we got Frank Seravalli coming up in about 10 minutes from now, a scene setter from Sweden. Not too shabby, eh?
Yeah, that's nice. I got to talk to management on why he's over there, and we're sitting here like a bunch of pigeons. It's all right, though. It's always good to pick his brain. He's usually in the know. I want to see what he's doing over there. Any extracurriculars, Frankie?
Yeah, quite frankly, that's all I really care about. I don't care about the game at all. I want to know what's going on. Have you had Swedish meatballs? Have you hit the town a bit? I was talking to Frank the other day. It was his first trip to Stockholm. So we'll get his thoughts in about 5 or 10 from now. But brought to you by DoorDash, it's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value and zero delivery fees in their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25 for 25% off your first order with DoorDash. And again, it's uppercase for NATION25. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change, and terms applies. We get set for the Leafs and the Red Wings. And talk about the short end of the stick, Rosie, that Detroit goes all the way to Sweden to play a back-to-back, eh?
Suck it! I like it. And that was quite the barn burner of a game they had there. It was a wild one, but Sens pulled it off. Lots of fireworks. It's good to see when you go overseas and you're doing a showcase and you're saying, hey, this is what we have to offer over here. It's nice not to lay an egg and have like a 1-0 game with nothing going on, but that was an exciting one.
It was, and then that's one of the things I want to talk to Frank about is like the expectation for these 4 games in Stockholm. What are they going to be like? Because watching that game, and And the walk-off home run, they're calling it, from Timothy Stützle. What a finish. Detroit couldn't get a save. Ottawa couldn't get a save. It was freewheeling, a lot of bad penalties taken in that game. The officiating was a bit suspect, but it sort of scares me because, again, from the Leafs perspective, what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, let's tighten things up defensively. And this seems like a recipe for disaster here.
Why? Just because the last night's game was a high-scoring affair?
But these guys have been overseas now for 4 or 5 days, and we talk about it this week. Like they're not letting loose like you guys did back in your day. But like I don't think their mind is set on playing a hockey game.
Yeah, but everyone's in the same boat, man. And like you said, the Detroit Red Wings are on a back-to-back. I think, it's up to the coach to, foster the environment. You go over there, like you said, they're there early. You're going to get off the plane. You're going to have, a repertoire of things you're going to do. We're going to go check out this spot, do this, team dinner over here. We're going to have a team meeting, like focus on hockey after practice at this point in time. We're going to do a video in the hotel room at this point in time. And you got to be a professional. You got to be able to turn it on and shut it off. And yeah, there's a little bit more distractions out there, no question. But I mean, geez, they're not robots. You don't have to have an 82 game regiment where you just have the blinders on the whole time and are just hockey, 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 or you'll go bloody crazy. So I think they're pros. They understand it. They all play in big, flashy cities. You hit every NHL team in the whole league every year. You're going to Vegas. You're going to do stuff. They're used to this. Yeah, it's different that it's a different country and there's some different opportunities to see things they don't normally see, but that doesn't mean they're going to be like, oh, what? We have to play hockey today? I wasn't prepared. I didn't realize. Oh, no, we lost. I mean, there's just no excuses for it, right? And I'm sure Sheldon Keefe will be beating his drum saying, listen, we got to be prepared. And when it's game day and the night before, it's time to rock and roll, and they'll be ready.
This is where you come into the equation. You played a physical game. I think that's the biggest key for the Maple Leafs is get involved physically early on. I really do feel that way. You have Detroit on the back-to-back. They're overseas. They probably just want to get home at this point. They got the victory, they lost in OT yesterday. But I think they're a wounded dog. I think for the Maple Leafs perspective, and it's not really their game, like Ryan Reeves isn't going to play in this one. But I think that's a big key is get engaged early, get physical, and feed off the crowd a bit here.
Yeah, for sure. Get into it. And I mean, they've been more physical as of late. They have been, stepping up to the call of the fan base of, you guys have been playing like pussies for the entire season. And they seem to have snapped to attention here recently. And, even with Ryan Reeves out, that fourth line is buzzing and the physicality has been up. They're going to bat for each other. They seem more like an integrated team that's got each other's back, that's ready to roll together than they have through October and the beginning part of November. So, they're looking sharp lately, and we got to see what they've got to offer while they're over there. Yeah, there's some distractions, but I think there's some positives to look at the last couple of games and build off it. And another big chance for Sammy as well to build on that confidence win that he had last game.
Donnie Does Dishes chimes in. Minnesota are playing back-to-backs too, I guess. Guess the two who aren't, and that's the Leafs and the Ottawa Senators, and rightfully fucking so. They're Canadian teams. But, like, what a bad hop, though. You go over there and you got to play a back-to-back in, like, a foreign place. Clock's different. But, again, the Leafs are not worrying about that. I love that part.
I never minded. The back-to-backs never bothered me. Like,
they're overhyped, eh?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like, I know those NHLers, they're not used to it. And I played in the American League a fair bit. And
oh, yeah.
And you have 3 and 3s and 4 and 5s down there. But I mean, it's like to take that day in between and then you got to restart everything over for game day. Where when you do the back-to-backs, you wake up and it's like whatever you need, you do. Like, practice is optional. Eat this, sleep at this time, do your thing, just like whatever you need to get ready. And you're already in the zone. If you're banged up or you're feeling depleted, you're rehydrating, you're getting a big stretch in. It's kind of like there's no more like, get going with this and we got to do that. It's like, do your thing, get ready the way you want to. I always like that because you can go do your thing, get yourself feeling as good as possible. Everyone's going to have some bumps and bruises. And then all of a sudden, snap, you're right back in the locker room, ready to rock again. And bang, you just played 2 games and and rattled them off. And I just feel like you stay in the zone and you're involved and you don't pull yourself out of that game mindset. You just stay in it for a couple of days, and it's easier than having to repeat everything with a day in between, in my opinion. But I mean, there's probably some guys that aren't used to it, who are probably like, no, I want that day off.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And again, it is a different age, but you're so right on that front. Again, Frank Seravalli is coming up in a few moments here from Sweden. We'll get his thoughts on this. It's like a pregame show, our first ever pregame show here at Leafs
Weird,
Morning
eh?
Take. It is very weird to just talk about this game and preview it and tee it up. But I think from the Detroit perspective, it's quite clear what the Maple Leafs need to do. Like, I'm not sure you want to get in a run and gun with Detroit. I think obviously Toronto can flex their muscles offensively, but I want to see like a solid defensive game. We've yet to see the, pardon the cliche, full 60 from this team this season. But when you look at Detroit, Alex DeBrincat's off to a hot start. So is Dylan Larkin. Got guys like Mo Sider on the back end. Like these, outside of him, there's guys who can be exposed. And again, you're jumping on Detroit in the back-to-back. That's why I think the first 10 minutes is crucial. I think from the Maple Leafs perspective, you want to set a tone. And you early and often, I think you want to set this belief on Detroit's bench, I should say, where you're not going to win this game, right? I think you're the fresher team. I think you got to jump on them early, score an early goal, and we're going to get to the goaltending matchup a bit later on. I think that's got to be the biggest key from the Maple Leafs perspective is buzz early and buzz often.
Yeah, and you want to get off to that, but look at the game last night. I mean, the Detroit Red Wings, they were out and they were done, and they were down 4 goals, were they not? They did not give up. I mean, Shane Goss is there in the back end there as well. He's fitting in well in Detroit. I played with him in Philly's franchise, and he's been clicking around there too. They got guys that can get it done, and they didn't seem to have any quit in them last night. And whether that was them or, the Ottawa Senators letting off the gas a little bit, I mean, a 4-goal deficit is a major thing to come back from, and they did it. So even if they do come out to a hot start and they get up a goal or two in the first, and you got to make that happen first of all, but if it does, the game's not over. These guys got to play 60 minutes. Like you said, they have really yet to put together a big fat 60-minute effort, which is much harder to do than people think. People just expect that to happen every single night. There's another team on the other side trying to do the exact same thing. So to dominate and have control of the game for 60 is very difficult. But yeah, that is definitely the goal going into it.
I'm glad you brought that up because we talk about the sky falling in this market all the time when the Leafs blow leads left and right. But contrary to popular belief, it happens around the league, right? The Ottawa Senators are a perfect example of that. Like I thought about the Leafs right away. 4-0. I mean, that's happened to the Leafs a lot. I remember the game a couple of years ago against the Ottawa Senators. They were up, I think, 5-0. Ottawa comes back. The game against St. Louis like years and years and years ago. So it does happen throughout the league. And that's why, again, pardon the cliche, the full 60 is true in itself, because just because you're up 4-0, there's like legitimate studs on every team that one shot away, they can score and be back in a game really, really quickly. So like, I think it's a good point too, is like, even if you jump out to a lead, I think you have to play with consistency. And that's what Sheldon Keefe and company have been looking for a while with this team.
Yeah, just being rock solid, not reacting either which way. You have a mindset and a goal in a way that you're planning on playing that game. And whether you're up by 2 or down by 2, it can't really change all too much. Obviously, things change getting down to the wire when you're running out of time, but you got to just stay consistent and trust in your game plan that's the best way to keep the puck out of your net and get in their zone and score goals. And you got to stay consistent with that no matter what the score is. And, leads are blown. You pop too quick and all of a sudden you tighten up, you're looking around going, and then everyone starts to scramble and we got to change something, do something different. And then everyone's just freewheeling out there and the other team's just got the momentum and the confidence and away they go. And those things happen. It's not just the Maple Leafs that have given up big leads in the past. It happens to everyone else. But of course, the microscope is always on the Maple Leafs.
Always on the Leafs and always on Willie Nylander the last couple of days. And he's been an absolute rock star. He's handled this perfectly and actually put this on social media. I think it's a good opportunity for Nylander to experience what it would be like to be the guy, right? I think obviously he's got some big decisions over the next couple months. Does he want to stay in Toronto? Does he maybe want to take less than he would get on the open market? Maybe. He's getting a shot to be the full-fledged guy. And dude, I love this from the Matthews effect. The Marner look, the Tavares look. Like we've seen a bunch of video come from Sweden this week. How much have you seen content-wise from Matthews and Marner and JT? Like it's been really, really quiet, but I think it's a good break for these guys too.
Yeah, I think I saw something that was like, Matthews smiling and laughing. It's saying, him with a break from the typical Toronto media. And, I don't know if I believe that too much. He's probably used to it by now. And you do your thing. Like you come off the ice, you do your interview, that lasts about 10 minutes, and then you're through the doors that no one's allowed into, right? You're not getting swamped all day long. You're not walking to the shower getting accosted by reporters. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but if he gets to go over there and he doesn't have to kind of hide himself and he's allowed to go downtown and not have people come up to him and stuff, it might be a nice little break. But I think everyone's getting that right now. You go over to Europe, it's a different vibe, different lifestyle. Everyone's kind of taking a breath and doing some different things, and it'll be a good opportunity for them to kind of blow off a little steam and come back recharged. Hopefully, I think it's more difficult coming back from Europe with the time change and whatnot, but everyone's different. We'll see, and I'm sure they'll get their time to recalibrate to the time change after this. But I would just say enjoy it while you're there and take it in. It's not that you get to do this every day.
The other thing I'm monitoring closely in this game, the bottom six, right? That was an evolving story against the Vancouver Canucks over the weekend. The new look fourth line, the third line as well. The expectation, what's your expectation when it comes to those guys? Obviously, a bit of a different look than we saw early on this season, right?
Yeah, bottom six you're talking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that fourth line was buzzing. I really like that. I mean, if you can, it's just a team mentality. Like everyone's flying, everyone's hitting. It doesn't matter what line is out there. You see when a guy gets cheap shotted or blown up, it does not matter what line is out there. The guys go flying in there. Obviously, someone's gonna be more aggressive and maybe scrap the guy more than someone on the top couple lines or whatever. But everyone's just got the same mentality and everyone's buzzing. Yes, you're going to stick to your strengths. Yes, the top six are going to score more, but I want that fourth line. They got guys that can skate on there, and to me, that's not blow the doors off everyone like McDavid. That means beat them to the puck in the offensive zone, give their defense no time to make plays, get them hemmed in their D zone, get them spinning around, because you just give them pressure all the time, and speed on the bottom six can help you do that as long as you're playing physical. And I want to see more out of them this afternoon.
Without question, looking forward to this one this afternoon. It's nighttime in Sweden. That brings us to our guest here on today's show. The following interview is brought to you by Sober Carpenter. Hold the alcohol, keep the flavor, enjoy a range of non-alcoholic beers so good that you'll think it's the real thing. Look for Sober Carpenter at Sobeys, Loblaws, Whole Foods, Metro, Farm Boy, and other retailers today. Happy to bring in the one and only Frank Seravalli. Who did you talk to get this trip cooking?
Well, I mean, someone comes along and I guess you would say purchases the parent company. That might have helped. There's some friends and connections over here, some colleagues, future colleagues that are in the work. So yeah, that's been a big part of my decision to go over to Global Series. And look, 4 NHL teams in the same city for 4 games and 4 nights presents some pretty significant content opportunities as well. So I just wrapped a 40-minute podcast with new NHLPA Executive Director Marty Walsh. Knocked out 3 other pods today as well. It's been a busy day. Lots going on here in Stockholm.
You're an absolute beast, Frank. Your initial impressions of Stockholm, man?
Beautiful place. Had never been to Sweden before, so that part has been really interesting. The time zone has been fascinating as well. Let's just say that after leaving, I left the arena last night at 12:30, and I was ready to go. I was like,
You're buzzing.
Next thing you know, you're in a Burger King at 4 a.m. and stuff's going sideways.
Oh,
Frankie, what's the vibe over there? How much time are the guys getting off? How much time is dedicated to checking out the culture? I'm sure there's some distractions of maybe the blonde-haired persuasion, but are you seeing the guys out there? Are they visible, or are they keeping them kind of under wraps? How visible are they over there?
It's visible media-wise for sure. William Nylander, I think, has been almost everywhere here in Stockholm, and understandably so. I think being out and about, I haven't seen much of these guys. I'm sure there's been a few shopping trips. I know in talking to a few teams that there's been some good team dinners. So that part has been a big part of this trip as well. But I think for the most part, they've kind of laid low. I don't think there's been anything crazy to this point, but let's see what happens the next couple days.
Frank, what are the chances we get a Nylander extension and come through the wire here in the next couple days?
I would never say never, but I think I would still be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an epic story. Everybody wants that, but like, do you have a general feel of like where this is headed? Like, are we going to a point like we know they're going to have this conversation at the deadline, what to do? Like, do you think this is going to be dragged out all year or what?
Well, is there really even a decision on what to do? Like, is this a
True.
question in terms of where this team is at in their competitive cycle? If it means getting to a point later on where they have to shake hands and say, "Hey, thanks so much for fulfilling
Hmm.
your contract. Appreciated your time as a Leaf, and we'd love to keep you, but we just can't make it work." I think that's a way bigger reality than a trade potential. But I think in talking to people around the Leafs, they seem to be really optimistic that they can grind away at this and get something done. Is that optimism misplaced? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't answer that. But just from, judging where they seem to think they are, they really want to make this happen because I think they all realize, and I think everyone around the NHL realizes that your team's a lot better with Nylander on it than not.
And what does that mean if you like? It seems like it's a foregone conclusion at this point with William Nylander playing the way he has, setting up his stock. There's no arguing with it right now. If you just can't let this guy go, what's the most likely scenario as far as roster changes to facilitate him staying on the roster with a new ticket?
It's a great question. I don't have the answer because it just becomes a pure math problem, right? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
dealing with trying to, essentially give him a whatever it might be, 4.5, $5 million rate, whatever that number comes in at. It's a big number. Now you can kind of work your way backwards with the cap increasing and remove some contracts from the books, some guys that are on 1 year deals. Like there is a path to do it. I think the bigger and more overarching question is it the right play? And I don't mean from the Nylander perspective because that's obvious, but just listen to Sheldon Keefe this season. Like I think the Leafs need to take a step back once and for all and properly rebalance their construction with more emphasis on defense. And to me that's pretty obvious and abundantly obvious with the way the season has started. Um, that's where this team needs to change in order to become a true Stanley Cup contender. Like, I personally don't think Morgan Riley's a true number one defenseman. Go back to the old Mike Babcock conversation. Are there 13, 15, 17 of them in the league? Yeah, he plays in the role, but is he one? And then you
Well,
work your way backwards from there.
what about it's hard to think of, but to keep Nylander and then to get what you need on the back end, which I think we can all agree is holding them back right now. What about, you think about, well, do we need all four of those guys? Blow up the core four in some way. You go through the lines, not moving Matthews. Don't think you could possibly move Tavares with his 11 some million. It comes down to, would you move Marner out to get a monster piece on the back end back, and as well as opening up his value there with getting Nylander done?
So it would be, I don't have the cap friendly in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's 1 year left for Tavares after this
Yeah.
year, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
And if that's the case, then wouldn't you just try and find a soft landing spot, knowing that age wise, roster construction wise, scheme wise, that it certainly feels like he would be the odd man out. Now, cap wise, and also, experience and that he's a captain, all those other things are great attributes, but it's 1 year. And then you're having that same conversation. So can you head that off at the pass and almost in an odd way have him quote unquote do what's in the best interest of the team and waive whatever no trade he has in order to make something happen? I think it's a really delicate conversation, and he's also well within his rights to say no. Um, but that would personally be the path that I think you'd have to think about.
Yeah, to me, it's fascinating too, right? Because Marner's up after next year too, and it's like we just started this last year with Matthews. We're going to Nylander, and Marner's going to be next with John Tavares. So that'll be very, very fascinating. Now, Frank, I don't know if you know because you're overseas. There seems to be a conspiracy theory that the Leafs and Calgary have something cooking for Zadorov and Tanev. Can you just, end that? What are you hearing on that front, and why would the Flames move those guys right now? Is my question.
Well, I think the Flames are open for business, so that part I think is legitimate in that they realize their start to the season has been really difficult. They're also looking at the math and saying, if there's one team in our realm in this division that's going to make it all the way back and get into the playoffs, it's probably not going to be us. It's probably going to be the team that's below us in the standings in Edmonton. And the Oilers could well rip off 10 wins in a row here. They're 30% of the way there.
Yeah.
I don't think that would shock anyone if Draisaitl and McDavid just start bludgeoning the rest of the league. But for Calgary, I don't unless they've done a really good job hiding it. I don't believe they have anything cooking. And more than that, I think Calgary, from sources close to the situation, they thought that there might be more interest, or, and I don't want to say interest like the phone's ringing, but like significant, something that's going to make you think, let's have a real conversation here about Nikita Zadorov after the trade request became public, after, the start to the season for the Flames and the apparent changes that, probably need to be made. So the Flames haven't had anything going, to my knowledge, at least. That was before I came over here 48 hours ago. And I don't think that's changed near as I can tell.
Okay, fair enough. We'll see and monitor things over the next couple weeks. I know you got a busy slate. Thanks so much for your time today, and have a great time over there. Have one on us, okay?
All right, sounds good, boys. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Frank.
That's the one and only Frank Seravalli, his first tour of duty there in Stockholm, and he's working feverishly. We appreciate him carving out some time for us on the show. A bit of a scene setter. You've been out to Scandinavia, right?
No, I have never been.
Oh,
So I got some friends
buddy.
over there would like to. So let's keep that on the docket for next time they do this. We need to sneak over there.
Yeah, we do, man. Like I brought this up earlier this week. I've been to Stockholm a couple times, and there's a reason why I went back, man. It's just it's a different world, different life. The one thing I will say about Scandinavia in general that people don't realize, it's very foresty. Maybe it's good for people in Alberta, but like there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of forests, unless you're in like the main cities. But if you're not, if you're driving through, the countryside and stuff like that, it's a lot of trees and wilderness and stuff like that, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, I kind of would have thought it'd be more rolling
It's not.
hills type of thing, but
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. Yeah, like I said, I've never been there, so I would like to. Need to do it. There's going to be some traveling in my future for sure. I need to check off a lot of those places in Scandinavia. All those different countries around there are right up there as ones I absolutely have to hit. Everyone I've played with from that area is fantastic. I really want to go see their
Yeah.
home and see their lifestyle.
And the unique thing about Scandinavia, man, is like, the cost of living is high, but
Yeah.
you're getting a good quality of life. Like that's the one thing I would say to anybody in the chat. If you're thinking about going with the fam or going with friends and you want to go out there to Scandinavia, be prepared for your bank account to take a Jay Rosehill punch to the face, man. It's a lot different, but if you have the opportunity to do so and travel like Scandinavia in general, it's amazing. Like even I remember going to Helsinki, dude. Like I was with like a bus company or whatever, like with a tour group, and we popped into like one of those like gas stops, like right when we got into Finland. Right away I saw a Timo Solani jersey. Like hockey is way more prevalent, and I know we sort of build it up in media, but it actually is really big in Sweden and Finland, and they really hate each other too. Like I have a guy in my my men's league team. He's Finnish. He hates the Swedes, man. It's like a great rivalry. Like I mean, not to the extent. I mean, you can't tell them to that, but it's like the US and Canada, that type of rivalry.
Yeah, and they have that all over Europe, man. They're very passionate. They get very patriotic. They live and die. They bleed for their team, and especially when it gets to like national teams and whatnot. So that doesn't surprise me one single bit. Everyone over there is very passionate, very proud.
What were your thoughts on what Frank had to say about Nylander, man? Because it's a conversation we're going to have ad nauseum throughout this season. Reminds me a lot last year, right, with the Matthews conversation. And you got these fucking pigeons on social media being like, they're not bringing him back. Dude, he's playing way too well. Like we had Jonas Hoagland on the program yesterday. I think obviously some tough decisions are ahead, but dude, and maybe it's a recency thing, but you could have asked me this last year. I would have felt the same way. I'm not even I would have felt the same way. If you have to pick between Nylander and Marner right now, Rosie, who are you picking?
I pick Nylander. I just do. I think he's got that grit. I think he's a
dog
gritty
in him.
player.
Yeah.
He's got some of that in him. He's got that FU. He wants to shove it up your arse. And again, I don't see it as much in Mitch. I see a little bit more timidness, a little bit more, expectations to have an easy game, and he wants to get his points. He's phenomenally talented. All that goes without saying. But if I'm going to war in a playoff series to run to get that Stanley Cup, I want a player more like Nylander than like Marner. And people could fly off the handle and give me all kinds of statistics and points and numbers that the guy's got. I'm not knocking him. You're asking me to pick between two phenomenal hockey players. But what I've seen, especially out of the playoffs from Mitch Marner, it's just not that he's not the type of guy to put the team on his back and go to war. He's just not. I said it after last year's playoffs, took some heat. Well, actually got a lot of agreements on it, to be honest with you. I would rather go to war with Nylander than with Marner. And I think if I look at how much firepower is up there on the core four and on the front end and how badly we need some stud D-men, I just feel like I would like Nylander to be here. I don't think you can give him up. If he was playing like dog shit this year, you'd have a conundrum. You might be able to, justify moving away from him, but he is absolutely shooting the lights out. I think he's hitting his stride. His prime's ahead of him, and it's like, you can't let this guy go. So what do you do? And I in my mind, it was always like, you can let Marner go and get back some monstrosic, return for the guy. But, Frank brings up an interesting play too. There's only a year left. And I mean, when I look at it and what Nylander needs to get bumped up to and how maybe overpaid Tavares is right now, that kind of would go hand in hand. If Tavares was more like an $8 million guy, it would be a little easier to get this thing done. But they are kind of handcuffed. Their years aren't really lining up, and there's going to be some overlap. And like you say, they're going to find a way to place him there, I think.
What was your direct quote about Marner? Can you recall what you said specifically?
I'm not sure he'd be able to lift the Stanley Cup.
Yes, that is a award-winning quote that I'm sure you got a bit of heat for, but also some agreements with. And I can't disagree with you. And again, people watching and listening right now are saying, "Oh, they're just saying that because Nylander is on a fucking heater right now and he's a top 5 player in the league." No, I think the one consistent thing with this team in the Sheldon Keefe tenure has been Willie Nylander showing up in the Stanley Cup playoffs. How often can you say that about Mitch Marner? I think Mitch Marner is a spectacular player. It's just when the going gets tough, he's barely noticeable out there. And again, it takes one postseason run to change that. Hopefully it's this year. And again, I always like to correlate it to like a Steven Stamkos or an Alex Ovechkin, where it took so long. They finally pushed through, and now they're known as performers, right?
Yeah, you got to get there to get the accolades. But it's true. You look in, I just think it's his his attitude towards the game of hockey isn't really built for the playoffs. I just think that. And we said yesterday, there's such a mass difference between playoff hockey in the NHL and the regular season. It's an extra step up. It's much more physical. It's much more intense, and it's more difficult for a guy that likes to play at the perimeter and have lots of room to make his plays and stuff. It's not made for a guy that doesn't like to go head down, ass up, and go and get that thing done and get in the trenches and go to war and battle it out and get to the net and make those plays happen and get knocked down and get up and keep grinding. That's the playoffs. And Mitch doesn't have a lot of that in him. And he gets it done in the regular season very well. He's extremely talented. I'm not saying he can't have a good playoff run, but it's just more difficult for his style of play.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you look at the core four specifically, and there's more players outside of that, but let's be frank about it. If this team's going to finally push through, those big boys have to be the big boys. My lasting memory of every postseason, Matthews can adapt. He can evolve. He can play a different game. If he's not scoring, he can be physical. Nylander has his moments. He can be brilliant. JT's, supplied some big moments as well. And again, the lasting memory has been Mitch Marner's inability to rise up to the occasion. Can he do it? Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, if that changes this year, that's great. But if you were to, ask me right now, when we just, went over it here in this segment, Nylander or Marner, to me, it's a pretty simple decision. And I think if you have to make a long-term choice and call here, maybe it's like something where you talk to Marner. But again, these are conversations we're going to have throughout the season. But I think it's so fascinating to watch it play out. And especially, again, the way Nylander is playing right now, dude, like it's going to be a tough sell to this market. And granted, as Frank mentioned, you got to make some tough decisions. It's going to be a tough sell to be like, you know what? We saw Nylander. We see how great he is, but we can't do it. I don't know about that.
I know. I think it's becoming more and more apparent that's not a question of if, it's a question of how. And how
Yeah.
do you get him in there? How do you sign him up? Um, will he come down? He's not going to come down $2.5 million. Let's be honest. He doesn't. He doesn't. It's not fair. He doesn't deserve that. So he's going to get paid what he's worth. Maybe
Mhm.
he shaves a little off the top somewhere just to make it fit when you get down to the real numby crunchy
Yeah.
type of tight spaces, but he's going to get paid what he's deserved, and they're going to have to find a way to do it. It's just the simple math of it, and find a way to bridge that in and get some relief after Tavares is done. So it'll be some interesting stuff. But Tree Living's got his work ahead of him, but he's got his cap crunchers around him, and they'll find a way, I think.
He just strikes me as a guy who's going to chase every penny possible. Like we saw him in the previous negotiation with Lula Amarillo, came down to the wire, almost didn't play that season. But I think you would agree there has to be a structure this time around, right? And not to naysay on the former GM of this team previous, but like there wasn't any structure. So what I mean by that, you got Matthews. There's a pecking order, man. He is going to be my highest paid player. Nobody's getting a cent more. Nobody's even getting a cent close to the guy. Who's next up is the question, though. Hypothetically, if you want to keep all three of Marner, Nylander, and Matthews, who's the closest to Matthews? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of always been Mitch, right? But I think Nylander has been making a case for himself of, no, I'm a superstar and I can
He
be
is.
the guy that you can rely on more often than Mitch. And I think a lot is going to come down to the playoffs. That's where you really hang your hat. That's a lasting impression you have in the off season, and it's the most important part of the season, no doubt about it. And we just touched on the fact that Marner hasn't been able to get it done. I hope he shoves it up our ass this year, proves
Yeah.
us wrong. I hope people are running the clip we just ran saying how stupid are these guys. Bring it on, because I would love nothing more than for Mitch Marner to turn into an absolute beast in the offseason and take the Maple Leafs to the promised land. Trust me, I just have no reason to believe that he's got that in him so far. But again, things can change. He can prove people wrong. He can step up and have just this monster career playoff run. Fantastic. Bring it on.
I couldn't agree more, and we're looking forward to the springtime to see if Mitch Marner can finally figure it out in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But certainly a conversation to be had again, because Nylander's on a different planet, continues to be that way, and again brings a 15-game point streak. Yeah, he started the season on a 15-game ripper, a bender, and now going for Game 16 here against the Detroit Red Wings on Friday afternoon. But Friday night at Avicii Arena in Sweden. Wendy's is letting you win real food with your fantasy teams this year with the Wendy's Daily Face-Off Survivor Pool. For those of you who smoke the competition, Wendy's is rewarding you with weekly prizes that will have you winning despite your lack of team building skills. Download the Wendy's app and score yourself 150 bonus reward points on your first order and grab a sweet victory for the mouth-watering jaws of defeat, along with some fresh, never frozen beef. Put your prediction skills to the test and score yourself 1,300 bonus points. If you win the week, use your points to grab your favorite menu items at Wendy's. Again, sign up to play Wendy's Daily Face-Off Survivor Pool to win weekly prizes like the spicy chicken sandwich from Wendy's and the Wendy's app. Head on over to dailyfaceoffsurvivor.com to play today. As we look at the lineup notes, so this is what we can tell you. No Klingberg, no Timmins, no Ryan Reeves, the expectation. And it looks like Simone Benoit is going to come back into the lineup. It's going to be Benoit and Legason, the third pairing for the Maple Leafs. Ilya Samsonov's going to start. The expectation, at least, he was the first goalie off the ice at the morning skate. 3-1-2, 3.79, 870. I think we both agreed that was the right decision coming off the victory last weekend, right?
I think so. Yeah, keep him in there. Just build. He looked sharp. He looked solid. It was literally the first game we saw where he didn't struggle. He had some poise and confidence, and he was in the right place. His positioning was better. Reaction was better. It looks like he had a chance to build some confidence. And when you're an athlete struggling and you can't find it, as bad as that is, when it goes right, it's just boom. You're like, oh, there it is. There's that old feeling, and it brings this calmness and this confidence back to you to say, thank God, maybe we're out of the woods here. Doesn't always go perfectly, but once you get that feeling back of that, there it is. I remember what it feels like, and I think Sammy got a little of that last game, and we hope we can build on it here today.
And for Detroit, it looks like Alex Lyon is going to make his debut. Of course, they signed him in the offseason, had that impeccable run with the Florida Panthers. If you do recall that game where the Leafs blew it against the Panthers, went to OT last year, and it started that magical journey for the Panthers to make the playoffs. That guy, Alex Lyon, is going to start for Detroit, his debut. Ville Husso is not with the team. Again, him and his wife had a kid. But it scares me, man, knowing the Leafs against like tertiary netminders, like third stringers. Not that line is. He's more of a backup at this point in his career, but it scares me. I want them to jump on him early and pepper the guy, you know?
Yeah, screw that. Doesn't scare me. Light this guy up. Light him
Love
up. Bring him
it.
back to friggin' North America. Light his tits up. Let's go, Maple Leafer.
Wow. Okay. Rosie's
Mm.
buzzing. What's your feel? You know, I guess we'll get to the Betano wrap up. Let's do that right now. Brought to you by Betano, 2023 EGR winner for both the best sportsbook operator of the year and best in-play sports operator awards. The game starts now. I know we have a small pocket, a small window, I think, as we record this, about 2 hours and 20 minutes until puck drop at Avicii Arena. But some plays you're looking at, I think the automatic has to be a Nylander goal, right?
Yeah, Nylander point, anytime goal scorer, Austin Matthews. You think he just loves the big stage. He loves the big stage. He loves to step up when need be. And
how about a deep sleeper, Kelly Yarncroke? If you want to look at a Kelly Yarncroke point prop, I like that third line the way they're playing right now.
I love it too. I think I was looking at the lineup you had up there. I was like, oh yeah, look at that third line. That group can buzz. I look for them to stay hot. Yarncroke looks like he's all over the place. Get him on some point props, goal props. That would be a nice little sleeper with some good value.
Would you look at the over? Again, we talked about it through the beginning of the show, how wild and chaotic and crazy that game was. And maybe Detroit and Derek Lalonde, who we had on the show last year, comes in and says, you know what, guys, let's try our best to be tight checking. You know, the one thing I noticed, the bench is a lot different. You played overseas, but like if you see this game today, man, like the bench, like the end of the bench is really close to the goalie, man. You know what I mean? So like if you have the long change, like you can get caught.
You can get caught. Your offside can be in
Yeah.
tough jeopardy. There's some different things you got to be paying attention. You don't want to get those, whether it's too many men's or some offside, or you got a long way to go to catch up. Your changes are going to be important. They'll be preaching that before the game, reminding guys, hey, the change has got to be tight tonight because these benches are a little bit wonky.
Oh, dude, it's insane. It reminded me of beer leagues, but like Detroit was getting caught left and right. There's a lot of penalties in that game, so I would look at the officiating as well. But again, I do think it's a recipe for success for this Maple Leafs team as they take on Alex Lyon and the Detroit Red Wings. It's time for the generous guy or gal. Generosity lives in the small things. Crown Royal, crown everything. I'm going to give you a chance to breathe here. And I'll go first. I'll go with my boy, James. So I mentioned I'm in Jacksonville. One of my best friends, James, took me into his spot. It's just me, him, and his dog. The wife's away, and we're having a blast here in Florida. So, James, you are my generous guy this week.
I like it. My Crown Royal generous guy, excuse me, is my dentist in Red Deer. The guy is, you know how you just, when you're seeing specialists and professionals, some of them could just give a shit. They don't even know
crooks.
if you're a
Fucking
guy
crooks.
or a girl or what your name is. They could give a rip. They're just doing the procedure. This guy seriously cares. He's actually a big Leafs fan. And he knows what he's doing. He's taking care of me. I'm getting some dental surgery, getting another implant put in, yanking something out. He's making up some special flippers. So if I have a lisp tomorrow, you'll understand why.
Well,
but he's
we don't
doing
have
the right
tomorrow. You have a couple days. Yeah.
Monday.
I still don't buy in. Anybody who goes to a dentist, they're all the same. They're grease bags. I'm paying for their Ferrari. I know I am.
Whoa! I just said he's my generous guy, and you come out with grease bag. No, he's a good man. He's going to take care of me. I hope he's gentle with that needle.
Yeah, and we should get at least when he take piped into that dental office. Maybe not that I said that now. He's like, fuck no, but it's my general feel on dentists.
We should. I like how you sent me a picture from like you were in a liquor store or something in the background. They had Leafs Morning Take going on the TV, man.
Oh, yeah. My boy. That was a couple months ago. My boy works in like a smoke store or whatever, like a vape shop. And he sent me a video, and I guess he was streaming our show. And like, I'm like, dude, do you want me to wire you now the money or later? He's like, no, we're just watching in the store. Like, I mean, we're building steam here, Rosie. Let's not lie. Let's not sugarcoat
I love it.
things.
It's good to see. Let's get the Leafs to build some steam this weekend overseas and bring it home, baby.
Yeah, we got to build steam. So next time the Leafs are in Sweden, yours truly and you are on the road in Sweden, you know, really getting after it, being at that fast food chain at 4 a.m., if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, sir. Did you see Nylander's family, some pictures and stuff like that? I just saw the headline. I was scrambling, zooming in and stuff. And then someone in the comments said what I was thinking. It's like, Nylander's the hottest one.
Oh, dude, he's I watched the video yesterday. The Leafs have been pumping out content. This guy was shirtless, and all I could look at was Willie. I'm like, he's a fucking specimen, dude. He's a stud. I'm a straight dude, but like he's an absolute stud, and he has so much swagger, and it just feels like he loves being a Maple Leaf. You know, like sometimes when you look at players and you've been in rooms where guys don't want to be there, it feels like he loves everything about being a Toronto Maple Leaf. And maybe I'm reading the situation wrong. Maybe that's just him, but there's just something about his persona and his, you know, the way he conducts himself where it's like, this guy loves what he does and he loves being a part of this team. And hopefully the Leafs can tie into that when they talk contract with this guy.
I would think so, man. More reasons to get this thing done, get him locked up. Everything about him. I know it's a contract year. One knock you could knock on him is, oh, you show up during your contract year, but it's been a while now.
Too. Yeah.
It's been a while since you saw that kind of Nylander kind of dragging ass and not giving the 100%. And that's a maturity thing. I'm sure that, you know, this run that he's on right now, he understands why it's happening, how it's happening. He's going to get the fruits of that. And I just agree with you. He seems like a Toronto Maple Leaf. I want to lock this guy down, see what he can do for us. I think if you lock down for a big one right now, he can be one of the legends of the Leafs here through this time period. And Lord knows what they can get done.
Fucking rights. So good luck with everything with the surgery. I'm actually headed down to Tampa tomorrow to do some scouting and watch the Tampa Bay Lightning take on the Edmonton Oilers, because we all know inevitably it's going to be the Leafs and the Lightning in the first round yet again.
My old stomping grounds down to Avicii Arena, the barn that I built, a big 7th round
You
pick.
probably lived in Ybor City, let's be honest, okay?
Ybor. No, I was down Channel Side. I didn't even live there. I didn't have enough time with them, but
okay.
I cruised around a little bit. That's a wicked setup, man. Right down. I used to be the St. Pete Times Forum, right down on Channel Side, and they got it all buzzing down there. Hence why they've won cups. Hence why they're dominating. You put Florida's shitbox barn out in the Everglades with some outlet malls. I wonder why their attendance is struggling. Always shake my head with the NHL. Same with Glendale, Arizona. So dumb. You got to spend the extra money. Put your barn in a place with some stuff going on, and you will flourish.
Yeah,
Gary,
let's just say, okay, relax. But I've done All-Star in Tampa. I've done All-Star in Sunrise, night and day. Like Sunrise was good because a lot of the stuff was on the beach in Fort Lauderdale. But to get to that rink, dude, you're so right. Tampa's rink, everything was involved in that area. I had a great time. So yeah, looking forward to that this weekend, and we'll touch base on Monday for a recap of this 2-game slate. NHL Global Series. Hopefully the Leafs go 2-0. Don't forget, they're on a bit of a winning streak, a bit of a heater here, Rosie.
That's true. It seems to get lost in the shuffle with everything going on, but 2 big games here. We want to bank both of them, and we'll be coming back with some steam.
There you have it. That's Jay Rosehill. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401, where you could subscribe. Just search Leafs Morning Take as well, wherever you find your podcast. Thank you to producer Aaron. Bang up job all week long once again. And everybody in the chat, that's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga, and we'll talk next week. Take care. Peace.
Thank you for watching Leafs Morning Take. Hit that subscribe button and never miss a show. And for more, visit theleafsnation.com. TheLeafsNation.com. If you don't know how to spell the Leafs Nation, you know what I mean? But hey, sometimes you never know.